Good morning, YouTube. Another video here from Los Angeles Prepper, and I've been watching some good videos from Prepper Nurse 1. I told him that he inspired me and I was going to give him a shout out, so I'm going to give him a shout out in all these videos because you know, I feel like giving credit where credit's due. So thank you, Prepper Nurse 1, putting out tons of great content. Congratulations on 10,000 subscribers. Power. I just made a video about Puerto Rico, and the first thing on the list was power. What do you have to generate power? I would love to know. Before I even get started, I'm just going to say I would love to hear your comments on how I generate power. And let me shift here because this chair has been making my back a little bit funny. So different types of ways to generate power. Number one, solar power. Pretty obvious solution. Solar panels. I was just looking at Harbor Freight recently. They have a 100-watt system which has 4 25-watt panels for $150, and it comes with a charge controller, and I think it comes with an inverter actually. I know it comes with the charge controller. I'll have to check on the inverter, but I think it actually does. We'll check that right now. But solar, pros, the sun is going to be shining most of the time. Even if you're in a cloudy area, you can still get power from solar. There's no moving parts, which is super nice. The less moving parts you have, the less likely things are to break. They can be portable. You can take these panels and kind of move them wherever you feel like. What does it come with? I guess it just comes with the one controller, which puts out power in a few different options. The other main advantage, of course, is all your electronics. Now, granted, if the power's out completely, you know, you're not going to be surfing the internet, you're not going to be making cell phone calls, but communication, lights, even things like, who knows, maybe you have an AED, auto electric defibrillator. You might want to keep that charged. Keeping your car batteries charged. You know, the gas ain't going to last forever, but at least while the gas is good, it'd be nice to keep your car battery charged. Or charging someone else's battery. I guarantee, I don't guarantee a lot of stuff, but I guarantee this. If you can make power after WROL or during WROL, you will be able to take that value and contribute to the community. Whether or not you want to donate that power or sell it or barter it, that's up to you. But and you'll probably end up doing all three. You know, I mean, you know, if your neighbors come up and they can't afford power and they're really worried about their security, you know, are you gonna tell them you're not gonna charge their little whatever rechargeable batteries for their flashlight? I mean, come on, you know. So power, solar panels. The only kind of downside to the solar panels, they can be a little bit bulky. They do take up a little bit of space. They're not the most, the panels themselves are probably EMP proof, but the circuit boards might not be, you know, the voltage controller. Without a voltage controller, you're gonna have a tough time making use of that power without frying. You might be able to charge a battery with it, but the thing is the power from the panel kind of fluctuates, so you'd have to be really careful without a controller to use the solar panel. Those are about the only downsides I can think of. Maybe the only one other downside being that you need some accessories to get the power to the right voltage. You know, if your panel kit doesn't come with a good inverter, you know, you're going to need, it might put out 12 volts of power, but unless all your stuff is 12 volts, you're probably going to have a whole lot of 120 volt chargers. So, you know, all your electronics are probably going to be 120 volts, so you'll need an inverter to go from 12 volts to 120 volts. Number two, gas diesel generators. Of course, this is kind of the common prepping thing. You know, I'm going to get a generator, I'm going to get 50 gallons of gas. Generators, the pros, put out a lot of power. If you want to make a lot of power, a generator is great. They're fairly reliable. You can even get ones that are pretty quiet. The newer models are somewhat fuel efficient. You know, you wouldn't want to run it all day necessarily, but if you had to run it for a couple weeks on end, Well, they're more efficient than they used to be, anyways. The cons, biggest cons I can see is the fuel's going to go bad eventually. Um, Even proper fuel storage, year, 2 year tops. A lot of moving parts. They can break down, spark plugs, alternators, the generator themselves, the controllers, and just bearings. You'll probably run out of gas before you break your generator, hopefully, but they can break down even before you run out of gas. Uh, Another con which you might not think of is you might not need all that power. So, you might kind of run your batteries down, run your generator for an hour, get all your stuff charged up, and then just turn it off because generators don't really have a low and high setting. Typically, they run at full speed, and that's the speed they run at. And even if they're putting out 1,000 watts, if you're only using 100, you're still you're wasting 900 watts of power. So, um, if you do have a generator, I would strongly recommend that you have enough batteries, that you have enough draw to use that power, and that you have enough ability to store that power. Don't get a 2,000 watt generator when all the stuff that you have that you would ever want to plug in is like 1,000 watts or 500 watts, because you know it's just you're kind of buying like above your price range. There's not really any need to do it. Just get a smaller capacity generator. At least that's my opinion. I don't. Generator is not really part of my long-term bug out plan, even if I had more money to spend on preps, even if I had, a bigger house. Um, I don't think, because it's not really sustainable. Like, a generator is great in the interim. It's great for a couple weeks. It's great for a couple months, but it's not great for like 10 years. It's not great for 5 years. Solar panels are good for, 5, 10, 20 years. Human power is going to be something that's going to last, forever. But am I tripping too much about going out and buying a $500 generator? No, I'm not. Storing gas for me right now is just a nightmare. I have to put a steel container downstairs in the carport and keep it all locked. And, I'm just not trying to do that. So, at least not right now. Number 3, alternative energy. I have wood gas here. There's probably, I guess I could put like biofuel here and other stuff like that. But if you don't know what wood gas is, look it up. You essentially heat wood and the wood off gases, and you burn that gas as a fuel. It works. It's not new technology. You do need wood to make it work. I believe you still can certainly burn the wood as firewood after. I don't know if it's has as much energy, but the wood doesn't disintegrate. It just you're sort of evaporating all the gas out of the wood. So there are alternative ways to make energy. Um, there's kind of a lot to list, so I'm not really going to get into it too much. But if you are interested, or you do that kind of alternative energy stuff, or if you have a wood gas stove at your house or a wood gas power generation unit, super impressed. Number 4, human powered. We've all seen the bicycles, on those little stands with the treadmill motors. Kind of cool stuff. Keep in mind, that if you're generating power with your calories, you're going to need to eat more. So, nice thing about some of these other methods is, you're not straining yourself. So, would it be nice to have some human powered stuff, and shit hits the fan? Sure. I have a bicycle. It'd make a lot of sense for me to make a generator that I could put my bicycle on. I'd rather try to keep my electricity consumption down and use solar panels, because I just don't want to burn through food. I'm not sustainable in my food. What I store is what I have. So when shit hits the fan, unless I'm hunting, gathering, bartering, I'm relying on what I have. So I'd rather not burn too many calories just to make power, when I could spend $150 and get a solar panel that'll put out 100 watts. That, when shit hits the fan, 100 watts continuous power, I think that's enough for me. I'm not trying to keep my fridge going. Although if I did keep my fridge going, I could probably make money off it somehow. Number 5, storing energy with gravity. So I put this here because batteries don't last forever. Lithium batteries do a little better than lead acid, and there are even more advanced or different types of battery storage, like nickel iron is a type of battery. Kind of interesting. I was just looking at recently. But you can store energy however you want. You could compress air and then use the air to power a generator like that. You could heat up a fluid like salt until it melts and then use that heat to power steam generation. But the gravity thing, you take the project that I was thinking of was kind of a large scale, but you could certainly do it on a smaller scale if you were so inclined. And this would sort of be something that you would do after your batteries just stop holding a charge. Is you take some power and use a motor, and let's say I fill this cup with rocks. Let's say it's a big bucket or something. I fill it with rocks, and I have some rope, and I use my solar panel to raise this bucket, say 50 feet in the air. Maybe I have a tree nearby that's 50 feet tall. So I raise the bucket 50 feet up. Then after I raise it up, I tie off the rope, and now I have all this potential energy. I used the solar panels to make electricity. I used that electricity to make some kinetic energy. I made the winch spin, and up goes the weight. Now I have potential energy. I can leave this here as long as I want, as long as the rope or whatever, the rigging is all good. But when I need a little bit of power, I connect the rope to my little generator, and once I let it go, depending on my gearing, the weight will fall down and it will spin my generator. So I can have a little power, I can have a lot of power, I can make it go faster for higher voltage, I can make it go slower for lower voltage. Same with amps. If I want more amps, I'll let it drop faster. So that is a very, very low-tech way that you can always store power. I don't know if it's the most practical way, but as far as actually storing power, you can store power like that. So there are a variety of alternative ways to store power. Like I said, you could heat up a fluid. If you heated up some oil to 500 degrees with like, say, a Fresnel lens or some mirrors and such, some concentrated solar energy, you could run some pipes through that hot oil and make some steam and run a steam generator. So, just different ways to think about storing power in the long run. Are people in Puerto Rico going to be making gravity energy storage? Probably not, because their lead acid batteries are going to last even a few months. So, number 6, storing energy with batteries. Kind of touched on it briefly, but batteries don't last forever. And I'm for my school. One of my school projects, I'm doing a lot of stuff on this e-bike right now, and a motorcycle that a previous class had kind of converted, or a lot of different people have worked on converting to an electric motorcycle. And I've been trying to educate some of the different students about how charging batteries work. It's not like a bucket. Back to the bucket example. And I don't think you can see this on camera, but if charging a battery is similar to charging a bucket, but charging a 6-cell lead acid battery is sort of like charging 6 buckets, like filling up 6 buckets by pouring water into one of the buckets, and all the 6 buckets are connected, but the buckets are only connected with a certain size hole. And it's not a giant gaping hole. It sort of like depends on the health of the cells. So, and I'll give you a couple examples in case you're like, what is this guy talking about? I was working on a golf cart at a museum that I do a little bit of volunteering at, and it didn't have a lot of power. I told the curator, hey, this thing's a little weak right now. And he said, oh, you're just trying to tow something heavy. But my nose smelled something was up. Not literally, but, figuratively. My gut was talking to me and said, something's wrong with this thing. So I took a look. It's a 36-volt system, 3 car batteries for this little golf cart. And there are 3 batteries. The ones furthest away from the negative terminal on the charger had a pretty decent voltage, but the one closest to the charger had a much lower voltage. So after removing the cap, luckily it wasn't a sealed battery, saw that the electrolyte levels in all the cells were low. So what was happening was, because that battery was closer to the charger, it was kind of getting like the first batch of like the high power, but it was getting the full power of the charger. So it was under a little bit more strain because it sucks an amount of juice when you have it hooked up to the charger because all the batteries are in series. So it takes the most amount of power. The one after it gets a little bit less power, the one after it gets a little bit less power. But because it's closest and it has a higher potential across it, it just tends to kind of wear on the battery a little bit more. So you get more off-gassing. And because it was off-gassing more, then the voltage was lower. So what was happening was the hole, like if you take the 3 batteries as 3 buckets, the hole between the first bucket and the second bucket, as the fluid off-gassed, as the battery acid evaporated, and you had some desulfation on the cells, so the cells weren't transferring in between each other. So it's like each battery is 6 buckets, and then the batteries together, so it's sort of like 18 buckets. So the first 6 buckets, the holes between them were getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which means that the charge wasn't going through that first battery as well, which means the second and the third battery didn't have a chance because the flow of electrons wasn't moving smoothly through the first battery. So what's the point of all this? The point is, if you have more than one battery and you have them connected in series, keep in mind that when you're charging your batteries in series, unless all your batteries are equally healthy, and even if they are, always check your batteries individually. And in fact, I would even recommend trying to charge them individually. It's just, in my opinion, a much better way to charge them. Or if you don't charge them individually, if you charge them in series, let's say you have a golf cart or something similar with multiple batteries. Let's say you have 3. This is October. So right now, label your batteries A, B, and C. When November comes around, put A at the end so your battery's in the order of B, C, A. Then when December comes around, switch them again so that your batteries are C, B, A. And then when January comes, switch them again so your batteries are A, B, C. So never keep switching them in the order so that when you're charging it and you're discharging it, you don't have the same battery at each end of the circuit. Now, that may seem like, kind of a lot of work and unnecessary, but I guarantee you the more energy you put, no pun intended, into maintaining your batteries properly and really understanding battery health, especially lead acid batteries are temperamental little SOBs. And if you don't keep them charged up, if you don't keep the fluid levels good, if you don't check the specific gravity, look up what a hygrometer is. It's a way to check the specific gravity of each cell. So back to that bucket analogy, if your lead acid battery is 6 cells and you have healthy specific gravity, healthy specific gravity, healthy specific gravity, bad specific gravity, healthy, healthy, this cell in the middle, it has holes connecting its bucket to each bucket on the side. And the worse the health of that one cell is, each of those little holes goes down. So just one cell in a lead acid battery that's a little bit bad or not quite as healthy as the other ones will not only make it harder for that battery to keep a good charge because that cell is stopping not only the discharge but the charge of the battery, or it's slowing it down, but all the other batteries in series before or after it, it's going to cause issues in discharge and recharging. So, if you have 4 or 6 batteries set up, even one cell in one of those batteries could limit your ability to use the system and charge the system and keep it healthy. Does that mean you should get maintenance-free batteries? I leave choosing the battery up to you. Lead acid batteries are relatively inexpensive. They've been around for a while. They have some pretty decent warranties these days. Now, if shit hits the fan, your warranty is bunk. But if doesn't hit the fan, you have a good battery for 5 years. So that's all I'm going to say on power. I would love to hear your thoughts on generating power, on storing power, on what kind of DIY power kits you got going on, your favorite solar panels, your favorite types of batteries. I haven't touched that much on batteries. There's just so much information and types of batteries, deep cells, and the difference between cranking amps and reserve capacity, and what an amp hour is, and all this stuff. But the bottom line is power is really important now. It's going to be even more important when shit hits the fan. And it's a really valuable commodity. So if all you're doing to generate, if you say, well, I don't need power, I'm just going to do everything with wood and candles and natural light, awesome. But if you want to barter something and you can store that power, the sun is going to give you the power for free. All you have to do is make a little bit of investment and store it. And the sun and the wind and the water, if you have, a stream nearby, nature will be our livelihood. Are you willing to tap into that? So I'll leave you with that. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.